Hello and welcome to Bharat Lok Niti Samvad. I'm delighted to be joined by Adil Zainulbhai, a renowned management expert who is the chairman of the Capacity Building Commissions, which is a constituent of the National Capacity Building Program that the Government of India launched, popularly known as Mission Karmayogi. So welcome to you.
Thank you. Delighted to be
Adil.
here.
You are a management expert. You have seen the world, you have been the chairman of the best consulting firm and consulted the government, the private sectors, and you are also a chairman of the QCI. How do you see the government functioning here at India?
It's always a challenge to move from one to the other. So of course I had to learn a lot, but I think having spent some time now in the public sector as well as the private sector, I would make the following observations. One is the scale of what the public sector has to do is larger than what any company in the world or almost any organization in the world has to do. The Indian public sector, if you sort of say that, comprises of almost 20 million people.
That's right.
If you say center, state, PSUs, local bodies, etc. So just the scale of everything is massive. The impact of anything that you do is massive. And unlike the private sector where you can judge things based on one or two metrics, what the government achieves is judged on many metrics, not just one. There are many things we are trying to do. So I think it is a bigger challenge. And like every organization, it has its own culture, it has its own way of doing things. And so if you think about it as yet another organization, but of course much larger, and with a different set of criteria, then I think many of the principles apply in the same way. I think one of the very interesting things that I learned in government is that when you're outside the government, the first thing you say is, government is useless. And, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and if only they change this, everything would be fine. When you're inside government, you get a much better understanding of the constraints that each individual person in the government has to work with. And they have a lot of constraints. But you also get to meet some extraordinary people who are having phenomenal impact. I mean, if you change, there are times when you can change one line in a policy and it makes all the difference and has an impact on hundreds of thousands of people. So anyway, that was some of the interesting things that I learned from going from one to the other.
So what do you see, in which level the government or the civil service you find the competency gap and that need to be filled on an urgent level?
So if you look at any organization, even if it is a very well-running organization. So let's take, for example, a civil service like Singapore, where everybody talks about how good they are and the fact that they really think very hard about everything. They pay their civil servants really well. It's a very good structure, and by and large, they seem to achieve things. When we talked to the Singaporeans about capacity building, they were paranoid that despite everything they've done, they are not staying ahead of the game. Right? And like, for example, they have a huge effort going on citizen-centric government because they felt that was the one thing that they have not done well. So I think in terms of capacity building, it is a never-ending game. You have to keep improving capacity at every place because the effect is so great. So in India, we have to do the same thing. Having said that, for a long time, if you look at the 20 million civil servants that we have, there was quite a lot of training for certain categories of them, right? So for whether you like it or not, or you think it's done well, many of the services like the Indian Administrative Service, the Indian Foreign Service, the et cetera, some of the central services had a lot of training actually. Whether it was delivered the best and whether that built all the capacity is different. But many levels below that, which comprise the vast majority of the 20 million, just the sheer amount of training was relatively low.
They are the frontline workers.
Correct.
That's right.
So for example, we have never really trained a large number of people who are in the front line. Many of our the postal service folks, many people in railways, the ticket collectors, we have not trained them on what is expected from them in terms of how they treat the citizen. Okay? If they don't do it in the way we'd like, at some level we have to blame ourselves. We never ask them. No? Now you can judge. If you told someone do something and you train them to do it and they don't do it, then you can blame them, right? But if you never said this is what you should do and you've never trained them in doing it, how can you blame them, right? So I think there is a huge need at various levels in terms of improving capacity because we have not paid attention to it, number one. Number two is we love lectures. And you know this since you're in a training institution, right? But adult learning is very different. Adults learn by connecting things to their experiences.
Right.
And the attention span is much less.
Right.
And most adults learn something when they want to learn that thing. So if you say, please learn this because it will be useful for you 10 years from now, what we've learned on adult learning is that nobody will learn.
Nobody will learn.
Right? So today with technology, we have a chance to give people training when they need it. So I always give this example of in the Indian government, people keep moving around. One day you are a director in agriculture, next day you are a JS in steel. And you know nothing about steel, but you're assigned and the next day you're there and you start working. Ideally, what you would do is you would say, if you're going to a new area, you ought to take a week or two of training so that you really understand the new area. Somebody would tell you, here are the 5 best books to read, here are the 10 experts to talk to. Somebody would tell you, here are 3 courses you might take.
That's right.
Right? So that when you hit the ground, you're hitting the ground running. And here are the 10 issues of the industry that you are in. So now when you hit the ground, you have been trained and it's given to you then. 10 years ago, if I told you about steel, you wouldn't care.
Right.
Right? So I think if you apply those principles of learning, you can rethink capacity building and get a 10x multiplier effect. Right? So if I had a JS who really understood the steel industry, on day one they will start becoming very functional. And it's the same thing everywhere, at every level of the government. How can we inculcate a lifetime of learning? And one of the very interesting things, so let me ask you this question. You're arguing with your son about something, your son says X, you don't believe it, so you quickly go to Google, you find the answer, and tell him, oh, this is right, I'm right for once.
Right.
Most of the time you're right, but I'm right this time, right?
Absolutely.
That's learning.
That's right.
Now, nobody told you that you should go learn that, right? But it's become so easy that I can go to Google and learn something that I want, right? I want to learn that thing. So if we can make learning that simple for people, I think there is a huge hunger in people to learn. Otherwise, they wouldn't be watching as much as they do on Google, on YouTube, on every other thing, which people are doing today, right? So I think there is a huge hunger to learn. If we can make it easy for them to learn, suppose you wanted to find out about a new technology, blockchain, right, which is a useful thing in people's lives. And I told you the only way you can learn about blockchain is to take a 6-week course. Maybe one person will take it. If I said, oh, by the way, you can learn a lot about blockchain in a 1-day course, maybe 100 people would take it.
Right.
If I said, listen, all you really need to know, I can teach you in an hour, 10,000 people will do it.
Right.
And if I said you can learn the basics of blockchain in 5 minutes, 100,000 people will do it. So why don't we start by saying, let me give you a little tidbit. If you like it, in 5 minutes. If you like it, you can go to an hour. If you like it a lot, you can go to a day. If you like it a lot, you can go to 6 weeks, right? So let's give everybody that choice, because when you give that choice, 5 minutes, everyone's willing to give you on something that's important to you, right? So I think we're trying to think about capacity building as flipping it completely on its head, right? Instead of saying you should learn when we tell you to learn, how can we flip it to you should learn when you want to learn?
Absolutely.
Because then it'll get in your head.
Adil, since you're talking about the process, now in this new training architecture, there is a shift from rule-based to role-based. How do you think this kind of shift can be brought about?
It's actually quite an important shift. And see, from the foundations of the Indian civil service was, from the time it was the British civil service, is based on rules.
Right.
The rules may have changed, and basically you have to follow the rules. So if I'm an expert in rules, I can tell you how to interpret the rules and what to do, right? But rules don't define the outcome.
That's true.
Right? At the end of the day, I want to get something done, right? Role defines the outcome. Your role is to ensure that there is water in all the villages in your district. Okay, that's your role. Your rules may be about how you bid for it and how you put it out for tender, etc. So the thought is that if you really understand what your role is and what you have to deliver, then you can focus on delivering that rather than just interpreting a rule.
Right.
Right? So that's the idea of shifting people to really worry about their roles and look at the outcomes of what those roles are. My sense is, think about, let me ask you the following. What will you get satisfaction from? I was able to improve the plight of 1,000 families in my block. I was able to tell people when they were crossing the rules. Which one would give you more satisfaction?
Certainly people.
Right. So
Absolutely,
I think
yes.
it will make for a much more motivated, happier and more effective workforce if they're working towards something. And that is how role-based comes in, right? As opposed to saying, look, who knows what the answer, whether anything will get accomplished, but I have followed the rules.
That's right.
Right? I am only worried about rules. We want people to start worrying about roles and outcomes. So I think it will actually result in much more effective outcomes. It will result in people who are happier with what they're doing and much better job satisfaction.
There is something like law and justice.
Yes.
Absolutely. Adil, this bureaucracy all over the world, they are being known for its overburden. They are overburdened. And in the process, in the interagnum from rule-based to role-based, the kind of process that you are bringing about, don't you think this is going to be another load of the bureaucracy in India, during the interagnum at least?
So I think actually it will make it easier, because there's a whole lot of things that you won't have to do, right? That you stop doing because that's not what is really important. You are focusing on what is really important. So my guess is that if when done right, this will actually lower the burden on people. See, it's a little bit like, no one's asking you to do your hobby, right? But you do it because it gives you joy.
That's true.
Right? And you're almost never too busy to do your real hobbies that you're excited about, right? Because it is so interesting, you'll find the time. And I think it's the same thing on this. I don't think it will increase the burden. And what it will increase are things that will give people joy, as opposed to, see, if you ask somebody to fill out every day go spend an hour filling out forms and something mindless, then that is a burden. And it's not joy, right? It is horrible stuff to do. So then you look at it and say, oh God, this is terrible. I don't want to do this, right? But, if somebody spends some more time on things that they really enjoy, then in my mind, that's not an overburden. So I don't think this will lead to overburden. I think it will lead to people being more excited about what they're doing.
Now, coming to fracking, which is an acronym of Framework for Roles, Activities, and competencies. How are you going to bring this there in the government department, those who are quite apprehensive about this?
So first of all, I think it is a long journey. Okay, right. It's not as though tomorrow you are everything is tried to frack. It will take some time to get it right. But I think people are excited about certain aspects of it. So let me ask you a question, right? Suppose I said, for you to be successful, can you name one competency that is important to you? Forget frack. One competency that you should do well, right? So let's say, for a second, since you're a professor, you'll say, I need to be able to teach well.
That's right.
Right?
Research well.
Very good. I said, forget fracking. I'm just asking you this. So you say, very good. How good are you, and how can you get better at it? You'll say, yes, of course I can get better. If I could have taken the following 3 courses, or if I could have been trained by, and you can name the 3 best professors you ever worked with in your life, or that you've never worked with but you'd love to do, then you'd say, wow, that is fantastic. If I can get that training, I'll be able to do it very well, right? So now you're not thinking frack or anything. You're just saying, for me to be successful, I needed this competency, and you're helping me make that competency better, then it works, right? Then you're not thinking about frack, etc. So I think we have to get away from a mechanical understanding of frack to what it will deliver. Even if I don't have all your competencies, but, and nobody will have figured out all the competencies required for your job right away. But the 2 or 3 most important, and you can make those competencies better, then that training will always be better because it's matched against what you need. So I think that's how you have to think about it, rather than, oh my God, I have to go through this huge exercise and I can't do anything until I've finished that exercise. I think you start with a few things that you know you have to do well, and this is going to give you the opportunity to learn about that,
That's
from the
right.
best in the world.
That's right. Professors can certainly find out what they need, but I don't think it's a little difficult. It's a challenge among the civil servants.
But
because
but let me give you an example, right? For example, I am a joint secretary or a director in civil aviation, right? One of the most important priorities of civil aviation is to build 100 new airports and privatize them.
That's right.
Right? So to do that, one of the competencies I need to have, and I really need to understand, is how to do public-private partnerships for airport-like projects. Right? That's, you agree? I don't have to worry about everything else. I know that's important. Okay, now if I can get the 3 best courses in the world that teach me how to do that, I'm going to be very successful. Right? I don't have to be a professor. It is, what is required at that stage. So that's my point, which is in every job. Actually, if you ask the person, what is it that you think you lack in terms of training, they'll tell you. You don't have to go through some magic, and if you can, so the question is not just saying, okay, what's the competency and mapping the competency. It is how do you get better at it. And if I give you the opportunity to get better at something that will help you do your job a lot better, I think people will jump on it.
Absolutely. There is another shift, Adil, from offline to online training. People generally come for training when they want to unwind themselves. Now, this kind of training will be on-site, online training.
It'll be everything.
That's right.
The short answer is that training in the future will be physical, which is very important, digital, phygital, as they're calling it, right, which is a mixture of those. And so let me give you an example. For and I'm doing this at forget the IAS, etc. Right? If you look at Central Secretariat Services, accounts officers, right? There's a training at ISTM for accounts officers, which helps them understand how to do accounting, etc., etc. I was there yesterday, and we asked them, what can we do better? And they said, we 5 of them had come from Tamil Nadu. They said there are 200 officers there who could do with this training. Only 5 of us can come here because of travel reasons and time reasons, right? But if you gave us an opportunity to, we would all love to do this training, but we can't get away to do it. So if you offered it to us digitally or fidgetally, where we can do it close to our homes, but also do it, it would be fantastic. So I think actually this will open up great opportunities for people to do the training. As I said, adult learning is doing the training when you need it. And there's nothing that says we are going to move from, today it's 100% physical by and large before COVID, to 100% digital. That's not at all the case. There will be a good mix, and therefore it will open up more doors, right? Because there are lots of value in getting together physically at times, but you make this available to lots of people,
right?
As opposed to only people. So somebody told us that, listen, very good people, the ministries will never let them go for training because they can't afford to have them go away.
Absolutely.
So, but if you said to them, by the way, you can do this by doing 2 hours in the evening, they would be very happy to do it, right? So a large number of people will do it. So I think we have to flip everything aside, on its head and say, the idea is how do you make people better and better trained? And you give them the opportunity to decide for themselves. Some will go physical, some will go phygital, some will go digital, and the problem is if you want physical, then you have to go for a day or 5 days or 10 days, right? But a lot of our learning happens in little bites, which I can do anytime you want.
Yes, that brings up till CTI and the digital contents. I think one of the mandate of the capacity building commissions is the functional supervisions of the central training institutes. What do you think this Central Training Institute, will they be able to bring about some of the world-class digital contents, or do you think the private sectors need to be involved in this?
First of all, this is a great opportunity for CTIs to get a lot better than they are today, because they have the opportunity to do something. So today you are a CTI and let's say you give a brilliant lecture, which I know you do, you give a brilliant lecture, right? Some 30 students have the opportunity to hear you, right? Tomorrow, if you are a brilliant lecturer, 30,000 people can hear you.
Absolutely correct.
Right? So I believe that in our CTIs, we have many people who are very good teachers and trainers. This gives them an opportunity to reach out to a very large number of people. So I don't think that they are going to get obsolete. I think in fact they will have a greater audience. And like everyone else, we all have to learn new skills. So they'll have to learn skills on how do I convert from a pure physical lecture format to a phygital, and we'll have to learn, and capacity building commission will help them learn to do that.
The federal systems. Now your Mission Karmayogi and the capacity building commissions is right there at the central government. The Prime Minister is looking at it. There are some opposition parties who are heading there in the state government, and the bureaucracy is everywhere, not just here. How do you see the apprehensions from the side of the state government?
See, my view is that most people, when they find something that's good, will do it. Okay, so we are going to start with central training institutes, and we are already finding, as we talk to them, that we are getting calls from the state saying, well, what about us? Please do what you did for the central training institution for us. So I don't think we are going to push anything.
Okay.
I think it's a pull process, right? If we can make central training institutions better, if we can make central training better, then states and urban local bodies will come to us, independent of anything else, and say, please, don't forget us, please help us. And of course we will. So I think we don't want to force this on anybody. My guess is if a CTI says, listen, I don't want to do anything, fine. They will not do anything, and they'll stay, and maybe they'll survive or maybe they won't survive. The ones that get better will then take over. So let's say, for example, that one of the training institutions jumps to the challenge and creates the best courses on behavior of certain types.
That's right.
Right? And 3 other CTIs don't do that. Right? Now, I am a student at the CTI and I have a choice.
I can move.
I can take yours or I can take this. What do you think you're going to do?
Absolutely.
Right?
They can move. Absolutely. People are footloose.
Correct. And especially on digital, you can take any course. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the reason.
My last question.
Sure.
Adil, where do you see Indian bureaucracy from here, after 5 years or so?
I think we should feel very confident on several fronts. Okay? And let me give you an example. India today, as a result of the technology capabilities in India, we are able to build world-class platforms at startup speed. Right? Startup speed at population scale is what I call them. We have Aadhaar, we have GSTN, we have NPCI, UPI, we have GEM, which is the purchasing platform. We have CoWIN, which 50 countries in the world want to have. Right? All of these were developed by our bureaucracy, working with the private sector. Right? I mean, it's not one or the other. So I think we have a lot of confidence now that the combination of technology, capability, and will allow us to tackle problems in a very large way and make a big difference. So I am very, very optimistic, and I'm sure you will have taught the next generation of bureaucrats.
Thank you so very much.